everyone. Hi, it's Michelle Howe today. I have a very special guest that's in the room with us, and this is Raven. Hi, Raven.
Hey.
I want to give Raven a little intro so you get to know a little bit more about her before our conversation gets started today. But I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised by all the conversation that we will have. So Raven is also known as Joan Friedlander. She comes to this conversation with a multitude of life experiences and skills, some practical and some esoteric. Raven is a published author, a former work-life integration coach, a self-acknowledged empath, a fairly recent discovery. These days, she offers her skills and expertise as a project wing woman, helping her clients with marketing, content, organization, and whatever else arises. When Raven was 36, there was an onset of Crohn's disease, a very challenging intestinal illness came her way. It messed up her career trajectory and required her to pay attention to her body. Being who she is, she didn't just do what the doctor said. That's one of the things we're going to talk about. This illness became her teacher and guide, where every significant flare-up became an opportunity to reflect and course correct. After 13 years of trial and error using traditional medicine, alternative healers, and continuous self-reflection, her symptoms went into confirmed remission and stayed there since the last 3 years without medical intervention. So that's awesome. Today, we're going to talk about her journey, the insights she's gained, and how human design, which is a modality that helps us understand ourselves a little bit better, has supported her discovery and her life of authentic living. Raven's going to add a lot to that because I'm very curious about human design myself. So I want to know the how human design and empathy, if there's any element of that sensitivity when you do someone's human design. I don't know if you call them readings, Raven. What do you call it?
Well, in my case, I offer overviews. I'm not a certified analyst. I'm a certified guide. So there's so far I can go. And for me, that's actually just fine because at the base of the base opportunity of human design is just to learn where you can go into your own body to make decisions that are correct for you. That's its foundation. It's got all sorts of data to go with it that people can study, and I have. I've been engaged with it for 14 years.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's about that, and it's about making this shift from a life directed by the mind's good ideas, which is actually quite unreliable. I won't go too. I can give an example of that in a bit, but we're shifting. We're shifting from this very strategic way of living that built the world we're in to one that's more about the individual. And so the kind of the turmoil that we're seeing in our world, a way to navigate that and not get caught up in it is to just trust your own body for your movement in life. And that's what it shows you, what you can trust and how you could be taken off path.
So what you're saying,
and not even and that's not even wrong. We're just here from birth to death doing what we do in a certain way.
When you said, living the life we're living, is what we've been living it through the mind. This is what we have today. But yeah, we've been living it through the mind, but we've been living it in all kinds of different ways. It just seems like we're more mentally oriented, like we feel more comfortable if something is logical and we think we can control it because the mind thinks it can control everything. But in essence, life is not. How do you control an intangible? Maybe this, maybe that. I really want this. Can I have this or better? It really is. What are you going to trust? Your own mental reasoning? Well, it made sense on paper. It should have worked out. Everything on paper said this should have been perfect for me. Well, relationships are not something you can do a plus and a minus and a pro and a con on paper. You can't quantify feeling happy based on a piece of paper that says you have all of those goals accomplished. So now you're going to feel really good in your body.
Yeah,
Or,
that's a big topic because truthfully, okay, I'll just take, I don't want to go deep. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But like, so there are 4 aura types.
yeah,
I'm a generator aura type. You're a generator aura type. The real, we're very results oriented in this world, but for generators, which are about 70% of the population, results are not the point. So just take that one thing. I mean,
yeah.
I was a business coach. I know how to set goals. I help people set goals, but it's for us, it's really our satisfaction. That's
The
to
point.
be the guide for the generator. And it's a very opposite, it's a very opposite world. I certainly was when I got
Surprise?
my first reading, and I was told you're not designed to make promises. You're not designed to set goals. You're not, I'm here to respond intuitively in the now. End of story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting, the logical piece that you mentioned. I mean, there is a logical aspect of human beings in circuitry. I have logical circuitry. My mind is logical. It's very organized, but not for myself, for others.
That's interesting too.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
for myself,
So,
for other. Well, and in certain things, that logic, well, okay. So if I'm looking at it, logic, I'm planning out my life. Logically, I have to make a decision. I have to do, like, there are steps that need to be taken in order, steps, right? Which, if you're going to follow a recipe, there are steps, right? But then there comes, you get so comfortable with what you're doing, you just start throwing in and you're jumping over steps and you're moving things and you're creating this wonderful dish based on what the flavor is. What does it need more salt? Does it need more of that? Yeah, let's put that in. So along the way, we're taking a read on, is this coming, but we're allowing ourselves to trust that I just throw things in now. I'm like, I'm not measuring anything. A little this and a little that. Like, as long as I know everything I throw in is something I like, then I don't have to be. I just think about my daughter, who at one point I'd give her a recipe. She couldn't just a pinch of this. It totally stumped her. What do you mean a pinch? I need to know exactly how to make this recipe. And I'm like, and I think maybe it takes a time to mature to be able to step into I can just wing this, not a big deal. But I think
said in baking, it's more important to be precise than in cooking. But I've adjusted ingredients. Like I don't have that, but I have this. Let's see if it works.
Right.
So so there's a point you made, and then I don't know if we want to backtrack a little bit, but oh God, what was that point? The inability we really have no control. We really have no control. If anything, this taught us in the last 2 years, there are plans, and then there's what happens.
Right.
So everybody is in the significant adjustment period. There is no going back to that, what was before. So there's sadness and there's grieving and whatnot. So the opportunity is, for me at least, which you and I talked about, is like sometimes I feel like, I have to let the world do its thing like a grid, and I just have to stay with me. I mean, I don't tune into weather reports anymore because I get for 2 reasons. One, if it's extreme, I start to worry about it before it's even arrived, like 3 days before. And part of it, I think, is being solo now. But the other thing, there's a joy in kind of waking up and being able to see what's going on in the day and responding to that.
I think the mind is a very interesting instrument. It is an instrument, but where our attention goes, energy flows, and it actually takes up space in your mind. Like if you're worried about the hurricane that's coming, or anticipating we're having a great weekend this weekend. I'm going to do this, this, and this, and then this, and that. Like there's a point where it's helpful, and then there's a point where you jumped off the cliff on it. So it's a matter of managing how we interact and where we interact, and is it helpful to us, or is it anxiety provoking to us? And you mentioned like the last 2 years, and interesting. I keep having these different conversations with people that are in corporate, and in corporate, like you're solo, I'm solo, right? In corporate, the frustration might be we want to get these results, we want to move forward, but we can't, or we have to wait till the rest of the army says, okay, time to go. No, stop. No, we have to wait for this person to get this decision, to get that approval, to move. So it ends up being very, very big. Like you don't control. But if you're in any situation, it's almost like, okay, where am I? How much control do I really have over what this is? I might control what I'm going to have for dinner tonight, but I don't control any of what's going to come my way. This person's calling in sick. There's all these factors that can take us off of our game if we let them be determinants or frustrations or what is getting in our way. If so part of the teachings with empath evolution is this is the environment that we live in. How do we set ourselves up for success? Instead of, whether it's human design or any development courses, how do we what is the environment that I'm in? What is it that I should hold back from anticipating or expecting or wanting? Like, what is an unrealistic expectation for my day? I'm going to have snow in July? I don't think so. Like, I don't care how much your mind wants to be on a snow slope in July, you're not going to get that snow, right? So it's almost like creating a world where your expectations or your ability to not have expectations. Do you know what I mean? Like you're creating, it's almost like we want to feel safe in the world. So we come up with all these.
Right. Yeah. You're reminding me of, I did the, many don't know about this anymore, but I did the S training, which then morphed into the Landmark Forum. And, one of the things there was, what creates upset? Unfulfilled expectations create upset. Thwarted intentions can give rise to upset. So again, it's that, when you've got a future in mind, I mean, that, this is what's difficult about even a relationship ending is what, the dream. The dream is not happening. And so in a way that's also manufactured from the inside, the dream itself. Yeah. Okay. That's a big topic, but.
Well, and, it's funny because, you're given this life, it's an opportunity. We are here to grow. We're not here to stagnate. So the moment we start to stagnate, we're not happy. Like we need to be fulfilling something within ourselves that tells us this is going really well. Everything is moving accordingly. Something is making me happy. And I think the last thing we think about is, are you making you happy? Or outside world supposed to be making you happy?
Right.
So the more you learn about the inside world of yourself and you learn to make that happy, the things around you could be falling apart. But the inside of you is perfectly fine. Like you're okay. So, all right.
And I would have to add, even doing nothing. I mean, I had a lot of practice and not much going on for a few years, and I finally relaxed into it.
You had no choice, right? So let's talk a little bit. You had no choice. Like when we're detoured in life, we're going, and all of a sudden something knocks us off of our trajectory. And how do we deal with that? And where's the gift in that? And how, so I guess coming from a personal perspective here, you were quite achieving, goal-oriented, moving, shaking, going forward. And tell me more about your life before and your life after.
Okay. Crohn's disease. Woo-hoo. Well, yeah. So it's interesting. I actually just did a post on my Instagram page yesterday with like, I still have journal pages from when I was admitted to the hospital, when I was diagnosed and how I approached it. But before, so I was in a, it took me a while to find a career direction that I really liked. And at the time I was working for a bookstore chain, Walden Books, but I was working for Brentano. So the, higher end part of it. And I was a training manager and a store manager. And I loved being a training manager. I had no idea. Like it was just this joyous thing. And I was invited, I started as a bookseller and I guess I was 6 years in or so. And that's where I discovered coaching. I discovered my ability to really nurture people, to put them in the right place. I love books. I love the smell of books. I'd walk into my store like, and I like the diversity. So that all looked good. And there's something personal happened in my life that I can, it didn't take long to assess. It's the thing that kind of turned the thing on, which was a situation with my son and his father, who who arbitrarily and without talking to me made a change in how long my son was going to stay with him in the summertime. And there was some, I forget because it was so long ago, but there was some uncomfortable history with this man and trusting him. So it was only 2 more weeks, but I was freaked out. And
He pushed a button. He pushed
it pushed a big button, and it pushed an insecurity, it pushed fright. And because there's a man outside doing something, he'll be gone soon. Because wait, hold on, where was I? Shortly after, I was already inquisitive. I already was with the Landmark Forum, where you really look, the idea is you're responsible for your life. And so I was told about a book, kind of a naturopath book, but it was, a digestive system issue is a sense that you don't have control. We've been talking about control. Like this, I had no control over, and it frightened me. Somebody else said I had a bacteria, but it all came together. I had a genetic predisposition too. There is a gene connected to this. It doesn't mean it's there, but it turned on immediately. And fortunately, I got a diagnosis pretty quickly. It was actually called ulcerative colitis at first because of where it was and the symptoms I didn't have. But then I was in the hospital, and this just cracks me up. I was offered a promotion while I was in the hospital to acting district manager, and I'm like, oh yes, having no idea really how serious it's going to be. And of course, my managers didn't know that either. So I also had I had the Landmark education training, which was you create your life. And I'm like, there's no way this is going to be a chronic situation, a little bit stubborn and rebellious, to my detriment.
I'm not shocked.
Every about me?
Woman that I know is stubborn and rebellious. They go hand in hand with being a strong woman. So you don't really see it. It's almost like if you aren't familiar with something, you don't really see that something could get in your way. Like you just don't know what you don't know. You don't know how grave that was. There was no education on this part of your digestive system, and this this gene is going to get turned on. It's like that's not in your awareness at all. So,
and I was healthy before that, so I did get worse. I ended up in the hospital again 3 or 4 months later, and this time I'll say I took it seriously. Like, all right, I gotta address this. And there was an episode of Oprah. You remember Oprah? On and she had anorexics on. And there was something about what they were sharing about how they felt about themselves and their bodies that I was like, I connected with, which is a little bit strange, but I did. And that really was part of my path. And even in the hospital, because again, stubborn and determined. I mean, I was anemic and they wanted to do a transfusion, and it was still close to when AIDS was an issue and blood, the quality of blood was a concern. And I just was determined, and I took the meds, and I'm Jewish background. It was a Catholic hospital with crosses on the wall. I'm just like, I'm going to take everything I can here
Right.
to move through this. And I did not need to get a blood transfusion. I got my whatever red blood count up, but it was the start of the journey
Right.
of correcting and course correcting and right sizing. And human design, just bringing that for a minute, now I can see, like I can map, first of all, my life trajectory is it's called 6-line profile. So there's a chaotic period, then there's the healing period. I'm in the beyond that period. So that was the healing period from the chaos of the early life. But I can map. I can map.
You're calling it a profile. You're calling it a
Yes.
profile. So in human design, like, I'm just this is not the same, but
Yeah.
astrology has signs, right? Human design has profiles, all based on your date of birth, correct? All of this is based on your birth. And so it's breaking it up in a different way. And is it telling you as much as astrology, or just in a different way?
No, it's the profile is more the costume that you are wearing. That's one way to put it. And the 6-line profile, which is in what's called the personality, which is based on my birth date,
right,
is here to actually be a role model for this transition that we are in, from this strategic way of living to, I mean, the lifespan in the before time was 28 to 30 years. And now, since 1781, when a particular mutation happened, now it's 84 years. The Uranus, that's how long it takes Uranus to go around the sun.
okay.
So how do you live a long life and be healthy, right? So
You're saying that our age, our ability to live is much longer now than it used to be. So more things are getting in the way along the way that we have to handle.
Yeah. So this whole pushing thing, I mean, we're very random here. Hopefully this is going to make sense to people, but I'm also thinking, people would say, I used to get away with it, about things in their body. I used to be able to drink. I used to be able to be awake all night, things like that. And I say, no, you didn't. You used to get away with it. You were just younger and it hadn't caught up with you.
Right.
So anyway, so the 6-line profile, it's the idea is up until the Saturn return around 28. It's kind of chaotic, where it's actually, I don't want to get too mechanical. It's a chaotic time. It's, life can be challenging. It's when we're kind of picking up whatever we're supposed to deal with.
Are you saying that every profile has a chaotic time?
No. 6-line.
6-line does. So in your situation, when you look back, looking at using human design, you can see that you were meant to go through this challenging part, this healing part, and you became a different person through it, I would imagine, because you can't stay the same as you were. So tell me some of the things that easy or hard you learned along the way, like that now you got, like maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That was the last thing you were thinking about.
Right. Well, the first thing, like I did have to pay attention to my energy. I had to slow down. I had to honor my limitations. I had to learn to honor them. I mean, one of my Achilles heels, and it's in my design, it's in the openness, is I have this compulsion
Yep.
to be, I have like, there's this pressure to be reliable. And when so I kept working. I didn't stop working when this happened. I had to take disability leaves.
Right.
And then, I didn't have consistent flares for the whole 13 years. I had periods of pretty okay functioning. That's when I would go get another job. I would get a job when I was well. And then I would start to feel like the flares would start. And I did not want to tell them I needed to not work. I just held off as long as I could until it was impossible to take care of my body. So that's one thing.
So hold on a second. I'm just, because I am not necessarily familiar with the journey that you've gone through and what Crohn's really is. Are you saying that working was one of the impetuses of because you worked so hard, or because you were stressed more? Like, what is it that would get your body back into a state of I need to rest and work?
That's actually a great question. I don't think I can tell you about a cause and effect there. I really can't do that. The other thing that I did, and maybe it's the hint, is, a flare, so Crohn's disease, I'm going to be a little graphic. It's intestinal. It's, people are familiar with IBS, which is when the system is kind of going like this. Well, with Crohn's, there's also bleeding and anemia. In my case, there was a fistula that is now closed back up. Okay, that's that. Why am I saying that?
That is intense.
Yeah, it's intense. So during the intense period, the pain was all I could deal with. It was just survival. Where I got to be near the bathroom. I got to be, I got to be near a bathroom. And when I would get through the acute phase, I always asked myself, where am I off with myself in my life? So it was a course corrector. I didn't bring the book up, but Carolyn Mace's Anatomy of the Spirit, which came out in 95. So I got this in 92, but that book was my Bible at the time, because she was able to point to energetic issues, and where these things show up in the body. And that was also part of what I did. Where am I off?
Okay, so you would get better from not working in and of itself helped you get better.
Yeah, if I had to take disability leave, I did. I only did that 4 or 5 times. The longest was 2 months right before I got married. But yeah, I mean, I was let go after 10-day disability leave, but usually they were no more than that length of time. But I did it because I had to just stop.
Wow.
And the work environment is not conducive, and that in the 90s and early 2000s. Well, I was actually I stopped working.
Most of it would be, feeling, but it's the stress. It's coupled with your own approach to that stress.
Yes. Yes.
How you're dealing with the stress around you and how much it's pushing you around and taking you out of whack inside. And, you appeared to be doing well with it for a certain number of years until something shifted, and now you really weren't able to process this life that same way. So in general, you switched the way that you work, or along the way. And what is that magic formula for you today, Raven? Is there a magic formula that you look for?
Yeah, before that, I just want to say, one time it was to leave a marriage. One time it was to leave a job that was just chaotic. So yeah, those were just really clear life things. So can you ask your other question? I'm sorry. So what is it today?
Yeah, I mean, what is it that, how is it that you create your life in order to maintain that semblance, that not semblance, that reality of, I'm not going to have another surge. I'm not going to have
Mhm.
another episode like that,
There, yeah.
because my life is more um, centered around what I need and what fuels and feeds me long term. So I would say you had to reinvent the way that you go about your life in order
Yes,
to keep yourself
yes.
afloat without dipping down and going back up and dipping down and going back up. So,
Yes. Yeah, so the way it works, so first of all, I don't work hard. I work when I have the energy to work. I'm definitely doing things that, I love. Even sometimes some things are challenging, but I have the spaciousness around me to go into to working when the energy is there. So I'm much more aligned with my available energy rather than what I should be doing. I'm also remembering back a little bit, like when I lived in Sedona 9, 10 years ago, I remember sitting in a chair. Something was going on in my world, but I can feel when my body is tweaked now. It's like it's no longer hidden from me. So when I notice this, I just say, all right, it's not worth it. I'm going to pull back. I'm going to take a break. I need to come back to home. And and I'm able so far, and it's still sensitive. It's not like I call it chronic sensitivity. It's called a chronic disease. I just call it chronic sensitivity. This is my barometer for how I'm engaging with life. And that's where human design has come in too, to support that.
okay.
Like, oh, there I go pushing myself again. Oh, there I go projecting something again. Oh, there I go worrying about something again. I mean, it still happens. It doesn't go away.
It hasn't gone away completely, but you basically you have, you know when to lay off the gas because things are getting too intense for you. And that's
Mhm.
really more of a feeling on your end that this is not worth my time, where maybe in the past you would have pushed through it to get to
Yeah.
the other end of it. And
Yeah.
you've been down this
Yeah.
road long enough to see it.
Mhm. And going back to how this started, that we are talking about this and being empathic, um, which I definitely do not think is the same as empathy. But being empathic, being sensitive, being aware of my own energy and that of what comes in and goes out is definitely heightened. I yeah. And it's, in a way, it's made my world smaller, with at least with people and even what I engage with. Like, I don't go to crowded anythings. I don't participate with groups that start to feel too sticky with their rules. And so it would appear from the outside to be a pretty solitary life. But I have learned, this is kind of, I think, the lesson of my being in Portland the last few years, which I'm about ready to leave, is what really works for this creature is to work by yourself. I write in the morning. That's how I start the day. I don't have conversations with other human beings, if possible, until 10 my time at the earliest. um, and then right around 1 o'clock-ish, I call it's time to take a break from myself. And I go out and I have 2 cafes that I prefer. And I go there. And sometimes if I can't concentrate, I can do my work there. So I've designed my work life so that I can be mobile. When I was a coach, I had to be home. um, and then I come back, but my way is to make friends with the baristas. I know their names. We have conversations. I'm a friendly. And then I have just a few friends, and that's actually enough.
Well, you're talking about, as you're telling me this structure,
Mhm,
you're talking about enjoying like you structured it this way, and this way feels really good to me.
mhm.
And I
Yeah.
love doing it. Like, but I imagine not every day is exactly the same as the day before. You just have
Mm-mm.
a very loose structure of some 3, 4 things that give you lots of space. I think you
Mhm.
call it, that's the word you're using,
Yep.
which I love.
Yeah.
Space to feel like you're pressured is different than to feel spacious. So like,
Mhm.
there's room for me to, research something that comes to mind that I think is important. Do you know what I mean? I'm
Mhm.
not pressured that who was pressuring us? Well, a job will definitely pressure you because you have a certain amount of productivity that has to happen, but it
Uh-huh.
also
Yeah.
be self-imposed pressure. Oh,
Mhm.
I need to be doing this all day, and I'm not at all productive. Like, you have loosened the grips of your mind, defining your day.
Mhm. 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 Yeah. And it's more, yeah, what does it feel like? And kind of going back to goals. So I actually did a video. Somebody asked me a question: is it healthy for generators to set goals? I was like, oh, I'll talk about this one. And what I have, and I have it now for my moving out stuff, I call it a menu. It's like, okay, like even in my morning journaling, because I am in this moving process, I'll say, well, today I can do these things, but I don't actually look at it again until the next day. I'm like, I did that. Oh, I didn't do that. But there's no judgment about what I didn't do. It's really, it's in a way what's happening right
Hmm.
now. It's this great practice in, because my mind definitely has been insane. It's actually relaxed finally this week because I can see what I'm doing. Like I'm in the initial steps anyway.
Yeah, I get you. I'm getting.
Yeah, but it's like I'm no longer allowed to know what's the future for me. That is, I mean, it's like I'm not being shown. I'm being told, if you want to call it that. I'm required. My energy is required.
Intuitively, because you've spiritually grown through all of this
Yeah.
into some connection to yourself. I don't know what you call it. Do you know
Mhm.
what different people call it different things? But if you can feel confident that you're listening to a voice, a friendly voice that's supportive of where you're going, and like you have a nice soft place to land, I guess is the
Mhm.
best way to say it.
Yeah.
That
And home is like, this is my place to land.
your,
For a
your
long
body.
time, where's my home out there? It's like, well, right now your home is right here. Yeah.
That's a great
So,
way of putting it. Yeah.
yeah, and I supposedly going to visit my mother next week. I also noticed I haven't made reservations yet. So, so I trust that. I was also going to take the month of May, get my cat's certain place. A friend was going to take her. She backed out of it. So I've got a new plan. But I was like, maybe going to go to Europe. I had all these things, and I've done none of those have happened. I have not pulled any, like pressed any buttons to buy tickets. And I know from experience now it's because there's a reason for that and it has not been revealed yet.
So perfect
So
timing.
that's the I'm sorry,
You know,
just that is the trust. And
yeah,
it is definitely, like I said, my mind has been very busy with the details. And I've had to do my best to stop that thing because it does keep me up. Um, and trust in right timing that this being will take the action that's needed to be taken today for whatever's to get out of here in a week.
that's perfect. Well, the thing is, you're following your lead here is not what your mind is like. You're not necessarily concrete on where you're going and what you're doing, and everything that you have tried to solidify may or may not has fallen through. So it kind of leaves you like, all right, I know we're leaving, but I don't know where we're going yet. So it's almost like this mystery tour that, I'll find out when the time is right. And
Mhm.
you're at a point in your life where it's just you. So it's
Mhm.
not as
Critical.
disconcerting or critical that every step. No one's going to school next week. There isn't any
Mhm.
client that you need to see right there. You're not closing a business.
Yeah.
Like, things, you're freed up enough that you can live that life. and step into that fullness of whatever it is and may explore it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know that everybody will want, like, if you're really structured, unless you're pushed to become like, unless something stops your world,
Yeah.
you're going to continue along the way because it's always worked for you. So until something doesn't work for you, you're going to keep doing it. And that's human nature. We all do things, right? You're freezing just a little bit on this end, but
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, I don't see any warnings, but
yeah, that's all right.
okay.
So
Yeah, and I have, my big thing is I have a cat and she's a fussy kitty, and that's my brain is like, yeah, but it'll get sorted out.
so when you, I was really curious when you and I, we do some work together. You help me out, my woman over here. When you're looking at human design and empathy, empath, not necessarily just empathy, being an empath, that sensitivity. Is there some correlation that you can see that someone is sensitive from looking at their human design, or not necessarily, Michelle?
Yes, yes, I call it the openness. I mean, it's the openness. So in our designs, there's definition and there's openness. And openness is, it's got two sides to it. One is that's where we're easily conditioned from others, or the transits, I guess, but mostly from others, I'd say. And then, but it's also where we have our wisdom. So I'll give you just an example, something tangible. I have an undefined ego center, heart center, and I've had the experience, and so when something is open or undefined, it's actually not just, it's taking in the energy. If somebody has a defined ego center, not only is it taking that in, but it's magnifying it twofold. So
hold on. If someone is open, so
yes,
you said defined and you said open. If someone, say it again.
Yeah, if you're open, if you're, it's open in a center or even a channel. I know these are vocabulary words, so we're just going to have to go with the gist of it. That's where we're taking in energy.
Okay.
And it's not just taking it in, but it's magnified. So I'm going to give two examples, one which was so startling to me. So I'm going to go to a different place. I have an undefined solar plexus center, which is the center of emotions and passion and all sorts of fun. My ex-husband has a defined solar plexus center. So when I was told I am not innately emotional, and he is, I was like, why am I the emotional one then? He's like this solid little rock appearing thing. And it's like, well, you're amplifying his emotions.
You're being those emotions are being amplified in you because his is defined. It's almost like open versus closed. You're open, you're receiving more of what's going on around you, and it's amplified in you because it's not just your own, it belongs to other people and it's coming through you. Whereas his is closed, so he doesn't take on anybody else's anything.
No, and then he's just putting it out. That's another way to put it.
Putting it out. So he's good with being. So can we put this to extrovert, introvert?
Sure.
Deal? So if you're more open, being around a lot of people is an overwhelming situation for you. When if you're more closed, you're just putting out the energy. You're not getting any energy back.
Right. Yeah, and he's really quite defined, and so it makes sense. So that's one example. And you have a defined solar plexus, so we could also say you're setting the emotional climate for the room. It's not bad. It's just what's happening. It's pretty calm.
And what's your emotional climate as long as the energy that you're putting out is a very high level energy,
Mhm.
then that is helpful to everybody around to tune
Yeah.
into that energy, or receiving some high level energy, as opposed to some stinky ass. Oops, sorry. Did I just say that? I
That's
did.
okay.
Okay, it's okay. Setting the tone for others around you. So it's funny because in the teachings of empath, there is receiving energy, projecting out energy. Like empath tend to
Mhm.
be always in receiving mode.
Mhm.
And it never was explained to me in that way. I didn't understand it that way. I'm like, no, 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 no. We need to be shut off the valve, energy out. Like stop bringing the energy in, because you can do things to mitigate that energy
Mhm.
coming in, and that openness doesn't have to be so overwhelming
Yeah.
all the time. Right.
Yeah. So I minimize my time personally in crowds and stuff. And like I shared something I wrote with you last week. It's like, okay, I just take a break. I just take a break and come back home. It doesn't take long anymore. It takes a day. So that's one example. And then I'm thinking, so I'm going to go to 3 different places just to give different examples. So some people have open head centers. There's no definition up there. And what they're taking in is the psychic energy of the world, I would say. The worries of the world, the worries about the past, the mysteries of the present, and the doubts about the future. It's not them either.
It's collective.
It's collective, but they're receptors. I actually have that one open it's undefined. But it's so what I personally learned about that recently, because it's less tangible to me most of the time, or perceive, whatever. When I was in Sedona, I lived there, and I was in this transition away from my marriage and trying to find what's my next thing to do. I would have an idea, like, hey, I'm going this direction. And then I would talk to somebody, I'm like, I like your idea better. Right. So I could
Off course. You could be taken off
take it off
course.
course. And then I'm just in the same lines. I have a friend who's completely open up there, and she was at work last week, and she noticed she wanted to quit. Like she had all these thoughts, and we investigated. It's like, maybe those aren't even your thoughts. maybe the people in your environment are thinking those things. So some people can be taken in, intuitively psychic. So I'm just wanting to point, there's different places of energetic
Of
sensitivity,
openness. And yeah,
openness,
absolutely. Absolutely.
not mine. That's where having your own authority, knowing what being able to perceive the yeses and nos in your body comes in, because and there's no mistakes. I mean, I've gone running off in directions, and my energy says no, so I just come back. So, and then the last one I want to point out, just because it was kind of fun, is when I got in touch with so I have an undefined ego center as well, and I was standing outside in front of an outside menu to a restaurant.
Is that your heart center, your ego center?
Yeah. Yeah. And this woman comes up and I could feel her trying to push me out of the way to get in front of the sign while I was already there. And I just turned around, I snapped at her like that. And I perceived, it seemed like that was her ego kind of coming on in. And she got upset with me. And I was upsetting. I was definitely rattled my system, but I knew that I was giving her back to her. So that's another thing that can happen is, if we blow up sometimes.
So
Recognition there?
what I would take that as is her energy was so pushy. You felt that pushy energy, and you used that pushy energy again, like it became part of you. Get out of, I'm gonna push you out of the way. So it's almost like permission to invade your center. Here is this woman, and here is now I'm going to embody this because she came right in to, well, I think I should have like a little session or two with you about how to kind of block some of these things from
Mm,
teaching you. But I
mm.
appreciate the how human design, your experience and how it's not like human design is scientific because it's not scientific, it's esoteric. Or
It
is it?
is and isn't. It's a mechanical description of our blueprint. If if it's to be believed, there's nothing to believe here at all, ever. It's not a belief system, but it's a way to look and see.
Our blueprint, but it's based on our birthday. So someone came up with these, what's open, what's not open. So it's looking at the energetic body to see what's open,
Mhm.
what's not, what
Yeah,
channels are working.
right.
So whoever created it had to have an esoteric background to know.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, the man was named Ra, or that was the name he got. I think his original name was not Ra, but this information, the story goes, it was downloaded to him in 1987, corresponding with the explosion of a supernova that supposedly splattered us with these neutrinos with this extra data, and he was the one to receive it. And then it took him a few years to actually start to share it and to digest it for himself.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I know there's
Thank God. I'm a clarion like he was. He died 10 years in 2011, 12 years ago, but I could never have done it. I could not have withstood that. He was
withstood.
designed to withstand that invasion of his body with this information.
That's amazing. That's like it's a download, it's a huge download, and it's a sharing of knowledge. But I know I studied someone who used human design and then tweaked human design even further
Mhm.
than what it is.
Mm.
And basically, here are all these channels, some are connecting, some are connecting. And sometimes when you get with people, almost like in my numerology, I can say husband and wife, whether I can see what vibrations they hold, what things like you can pair people together and they do great together. And then you could pair people together and they do horrible because
Mhm.
if they have too much of something or if they both are vacant in other things, like you need to kind of bring it together where you support and you're compatible instead
Mhm.
of there is you can be over idea, like you can all think you know it all but not have what you need to get it done step by so two people that are partners or two people that are on a team or a team of people need to be able to work well together, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes they have a variety of different skills, but when you bring them together, the whole group, that synergy of skills brings everything up 3 levels because
Mhm.
now you can see 360 around you as opposed to one person. You have your strengths and you have different channels that are open, different channels that are closed,
Mhm.
different
Mhm.
so when you bring it together, it's like merging that knowledge brings in a higher level of intelligence if you can get over yourself having all the answers and choose to bring it together
Mhm.
with other
Mhm.
people. And it's not always an easy thing because human relationships are meant for us to grow with. And if you're
Mhm.
feeling invaded, you have an open center and you're feeling invaded by that other energy, that is not actually ideal. You don't want to be
Right.
in that situation.
Yeah.
So navigating that, as most empaths, I would tell you, are probably very open in many centers.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole other realm that we could get into, and I don't want to I don't want to drown us in details,
no,
but
no,
there's
no,
also
no, no.
aura types that also are more
It's so
sensitive than other
cool.
ones.
This is
Yeah.
very cool
Yeah.
because
Um,
the human design is giving almost that energetic piece
mhm.
a lot of credibility.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, we can feel if you're an empath, you'll feel the energy. Most people feel the energy, but they don't feel necessarily invaded or it's not at a level where they're uncomfortable with it. They're just using it, they're responding. You have to
Mm.
be more of an old soul and your energy has to be really light for you to feel all that stuff that's happening around you
Mhm.
So it's like, to me, it's an evolution, empath evolution. It's an evolution to
Right.
oneness. Like, you think you're so separate, you're really not that separate.
Right. Right. That's also true. That's also true. And I guess I don't know if you can express it. I realize I haven't asked you personally, like, how do you experience your sensitivity?
That's a good question. Oh, I think my sensitivity, I think I have a really good shield around me. At least I tell myself I do. I can really feel the energy of others, but I don't mentally. Um, this is a really hard question for me to answer because what do I do? I just know things about people and I feel things about people, but then I stay far away from the feeling and I kind of close down to that feeling. I don't want to be in their space. So I feel I have some control of how close I get to them. But then again, I think that is an illusion sometimes. So I've had to like really see the world as my mirror and in some ways retreat in some situations. In
Mhm.
other situations, it's about me speaking and projecting more of me. Since I was always so much of a receiver and an observer, it's about me stepping into what it actually means to speak and say and share and
Mhm.
define my things more so.
Uh-huh.
So in speaking, I've been able to define, which strengthens who and what I am, and it helps me set some perimeters in my life. Like I could
Mhm.
always tell when I was younger, I can tell by looking at people, I don't want to be near you.
Uh-huh.
You're an interesting character. I'll watch you for a little bit, but I could get very lost in other people's what's it called? The chameleon. I can shift into totally
Mhm.
different sides of me just to make a connection with another person because I
Mhm.
know how to. It's
Mhm.
almost like we went to dinner with another couple. The wife knew a little bit about empath and healing and holistic. Husband knew nothing, or the wife thought the husband knew nothing. But we're sitting there and the husband's going, I can feel you. He goes, you are reaching right in. You're reaching right in. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I do that. I'm like, people fascinate me and I can go right in and shift
Mhm.
a few things around. It's almost
Hmm.
like I can light
Hmm.
them up. I can light
Interesting.
them up. So, and I've seen it happen, different presentations that I've done. It almost like people go into a trance.
Mhm.
And the next thing you know, 5, 10 minutes has gone by and I'm looking at them. Are you there? Are you there? like,
Interesting.
like, so there's something that's happening with the vibration that I'm, and then at one of these presentations, there was a guy who owned the esoteric shop. He did healing himself. And he's like, mind you, I am a very independent, stubborn. I think I know a lot of things and I hope I know. And sometimes I don't know. And sometimes I really do know. Right.
Mhm.
So discerning that. But I was giving this presentation and there was everybody there. And of course, I want to like see who they are before I speak because I modulate what I speak in order to reach them the best. So I kind of look and feel into what this really is and what do they need from me.
Interesting.
And then he, after we were done, he goes, what did you do? He goes, I go, what did I do? He goes,
Mhm.
I felt your energy all the way over here. You went into every single person to see who they were. And I'm like,
Wow.
I did what? And it, to me, it's as simple as I'm looking at you. And I can tell what people are thinking. That's maybe telepathy. But sometimes,
Well,
not
open
that
head
I,
Ajna.
yeah, it's not that I want to know. I just
Uh-huh.
know. And it's
Yeah.
very hurtful when I know something in the negative.
Hmm.
So, so I'm like, okay, so be careful, Michelle. You need to, channel out what you need to say, and that's good. But, when you're receiving back, you have to be careful because it could take you offline of where you were going. Because now
Hmm.
so if you look at everybody as a radio antenna,
Right.
I'm getting signals every which way, but my signal has to be stronger than their signal because they could like come in and totally throw me off where I'm going. Oh, I forgot that piece, right? Oop, where was I again? Like that kind of interruption in the flow. So my sensitivity is it's more knowing, I want to say, than feeling. And it's probably been my life work to get into my body more so my body can feel it more. But I have such a very strong solar plexus. It shields me. It shields. It just fully out, and then nothing comes in. So
it's funny. The divine solar plexus is designed to confront that an aspect of it, like not me, but I'm actually getting better at confronting. That's actually my strength. The strength that's been building in this last year is when I'm getting a no, when I get a no or something, I actually have to now speak that.
Yeah.
But I was so afraid. So that's actually really, that's so interesting that you have that skill. I don't have that skill. It's different.
Didn't know it was a skill. Recently in different conversations, it's coming up because, I keep a library of things that kind of stick out in my head of experiences. And at one point I had a booth. It was an outside, it was at the Pagan Festival actually. And somebody came up to our booth and I was with my friend. We were both standing there and this young man proceeds to tell me how he's taking some course and someone's teaching him how to siphon energy from other people. He's asking me, what? He goes, what is this sign over here? What is this empath? What is it that you do? I'm getting this training and my ears are perking right up. And I'm like, I took a step forward and this is what happened. My friend took 3 steps back. Just like I wouldn't be as far away. I'm like, listen, young man. I'm like, that is not what you do. That use your own energy. Why aren't you using it?
So that's so interesting because I'll just, there's an aura type called a projector, and they're newer on our planet as an expression of human being. And they do not have they do not have a consistent access to their own life force. And so so that, it's quite possible I don't know, that's his situation. I'll put it that way. And like, I know with my human design business partner, who's a projector, when we used to work in this, like when we both lived in Sedona and we're working together, he would once in a while just be really clear, like, can you come over so can I plug into your battery?
He'd be that direct with you.
Yeah. And, I knew that he was, and, I have a logical mind too. So some people would sit next to me if they were not logical. And it's like, I would just be there and then they could do their work on Facebook, like, or whatever they wanted to do. So it's nothing wrong with it, but if you don't know that's what's happening, right? If you don't have that awareness, then you can abuse it. You can also manipulate it even if you do have the awareness. So it's interesting that was his thing. And for them, they're just here for a different purpose. They're not here to be the energetic beings. They're here. They have different seeing and whatnot. So
interesting just how complex people really are. And the reality that they're experiencing versus the reality that you're experiencing per se. And honoring where we're at, where you're at, where whoever's listening to you, honor where you're at, what's the next best step that you can take that feels right to you. I'm huge about the feeling part. I totally agree with you, Raven. Like follow the feeling.
For you can follow feeling. I'm going to follow my sacral authority, because feeling is misleading for me. It's correct. You're following your feeling. I'm following my yeses and no. So let's just go back to that situation where this might, it's okay, can you come over? I get to say yes or no. I'm not obligated. So I'm not available for that. Or okay.
So when you say sacral authority,
Mhm.
how do you know your sacral authority? It's a yes or no, your sacral authority. How have you structured that?
Well, it's been a learning experience. Um, so the sacral authority is really, it's not an awareness. It's more, it's about, it's the center of, it's energy. So it's a yes or a no, and it's a yes or a no now, in this now. And mine happens to be connected to the splenic center, which is intuitive. So it's an intuitive knowing of a yes or no right now. Um, the
So
yeses,
language.
the yeses are interesting. They're more like, I just notice what I'm doing and where I'm feeling satisfied about what I'm doing. Like, and again, going to this move right now. It's like my energy just really wants to pack up, but once in a while I have to stop and do other things. But that's I feel good, like, oh, this is so fun. I'm like getting rid of stuff. Yay! There's a happiness. The no's for me, some are just quiet, like no's, like, nah, I'm not going to that event. And then there's a relief that I didn't go. But the harder nose, I call them the hard nose, it's like a tightness in my lower belly, like and it can feel like resistance, but really it's only my mind that experiences that way. And usually it's a resistance only because I have to maybe let somebody down, or I'm worried about what they will think of me. They'll think I'm selfish, things like that. But I can really feel, it's like the energy is just, don't come
And there's
near
some
me.
things that are non-negotiable,
Yeah,
non-negotiable. Period.
and you have that too, but you've got that solar plexus thing. So it's about, does it feel right? And sometimes that can take some time to know.
Me, like if I get, so you're talking about expansion and joy, excitement, expansion.
Okay.
Is that it? Your yes?
Uh-huh.
Your, yeah, maybe. Do I have to? Is a
And
no,
then that's right,
right?
right.
Okay. So that's your maybe. It's kind of like, yeah, no. Do I have to? And your hard no, it's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely not. I am not doing that. But
Mm-hmm.
should I be doing that? So and so is going to be upset with me if I don't do that. They'd be
Yeah.
so disappointed. It's like that mind that keeps on trying to probe through your no, but
Mm-hmm.
you're feeling it through your body intensely. And it's just
Yeah.
trusting it. But sometimes your mind can like, do I really, so there's a stage where you're learning, you don't really know. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you have to make the wrong decision
Mm-hmm.
to see it, that it was the wrong decision.
Exactly. I mean, some people get like, was that my mind or was that my body? Just go do it and then you'll find out. You don't have to be perfect in this thing. And I'll just give you another example of a yes in the way it communicates with me is, where does my body go?
Mhm.
So the last car that I bought, the car that I have now,
Yeah.
I was in the Toyota parking lot. I was turning in my Prius and I was trying SUVs. I was in Colorado at the time, so I wanted something more substantial. And I tried test drove 3 cars, and my body kept going to the RAV4, which, by the way, cost more than the other 2. And so for a little bit of time, my mind was like, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. But
Yes.
it was a yes, like, oh, guess where's the body going? So that's another way we can see the yeses when we're generators,
Yeah.
is what's the body doing? I mean, my mind will have ideas and I'll find myself doing something completely differently. But here's what was also true. So I did get that car. I'm like, all right, I get it. And a couple of months later, I took a month-long road trip and everything fit perfectly in my RAV4. And it's like, oh, that's why.
Well, so you don't necessarily know logically why, but your
No.
body on some level knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
That reminds me of the story, and we'll just one last story.
Yeah.
Years ago, I had thought of renting a space. There were all these reasons why I should rent this space. And I even went to go look at the space, and I made an appointment to go sign the contract the next day, all the while telling myself this is such a great idea. This is a good idea. This is what I want. Next morning, I wake up, I need to go, and I cannot get in the car. I am frozen. I am, what are you doing, Michelle? Like, I don't know what's wrong. My body doesn't want to go. Doesn't want to go. It doesn't want to. I'm like, oh my God. Like, talk about last minute at the ninth hour, I decide, my body decides to come through. That's why I'm like, hearing that body, like my mind is so strong, it'll override what the body's saying. So it's kind of like, if your mind is that strong, can you really trust your body to tell you what, because it could manipulate the situation.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's finding that pure frequency that, no, this is really true. This sits in me, in my body, and saying, without knowing why. That is probably the hardest part. Because if I knew the why, I could have gotten to that before my body is telling me no. But, so, at the end of the day, I think we have to trust our body.
Yeah. Yes. For me, this is the bottom line and the opportunity that I have been able to utilize human design for. And it's not required. I mean, Crohn's was, like we talked about, that was the first teacher. It's like, you got to pay attention now. And I didn't have this other data, but I had that wherewithal, I suppose.
Well, you had to do what you have to do to survive. I mean, you can't pull yourself up and not see yourself. I mean, if you can't work, you can't work. Something is really going wonky, and you have to shift up what you're doing. So it's not like you would have kept going if you could have. And I know.
Well, I did. Yeah, I did at the beginning. That's why I got sicker. I was cruising around. I was in really bad shape. The gastro for before the second hospital stay did a colonoscopy, and I called him that night. I didn't feel well, and he said, "I'm not surprised. It's like a train wreck in there. I don't even know how you're walking around." So the mind was pretty strong then, but
your mind is like leading the show. So maybe another time, maybe you can write something. Did you ever write about what you specifically did, other than these changes in the way you approach your work and the way that you create space in your life? Is there anything you specifically did with supplements or with healing modalities or with food to shift and help and support your body?
Healing modalities, not food. I didn't feel like food was the issue. I mean, I had to be careful about what I ate during a flare, and I still have to be careful. It's shifting what I can actually eat and not. But when I was in the hospital the second time, there was something people were doing called creation energy. I don't even know what that is anymore, but I had them come in a couple of times and they worked on me. I remember some energy going out my right leg at some point. I used a couple of medical intuitives to help me out.
Wow.
And then I really just started to write about these things more personally last year when it was the 30th anniversary of the onset. Just starting to put that out. I did a book called Business from Bed, but that was more of a business orientation, for people in business who got hit with a health crisis. So it was more about a little less removed from my personal experience, although my personal experience is in there. And the last thing that I did, I found a good gastroenterologist, fired one, found a new one who coached me towards why he thought certain medicines will be helpful. And then I also hired a network chiropractor I committed to network chiropractic care for a year. And I'm pretty sure that's what put me into remission.
The chiropractic.
The network, so network chiropractic is also known as NSA, or network spinal analysis. Very awkward words, but it's not what we think of. It's more about getting the energy moving through the body without blockages. And my neck had been pitched forward 40 degrees. I didn't know that. So
Really?
It got uprighted, and who knows, it was just time. And then my son moved out, and my medical intuitive said it's probably has to do with that too. Some things I haven't shared with him, but
It's okay. He won't listen to them.
he won't. Yeah. But you know, who knows? It just all it came together. And I'm grateful for that. You
It
know, and
was
it
time.
yeah,
It's time.
yeah. And I just am at a place where I'm feeling like it's something I ought to share, because with autoimmune issues or anything like that that's systemic, there is no just do that for anybody. And so I always hesitated to share. I don't really know what happened. I just know what I did. You know what I'm saying? I can't
You don't
say
know
cause and
all the
effect.
things that you addressed and what each piece did for what thing, because it's all
Yeah,
internal to you and it's a
yeah.
part of a bigger network, but all of it brought together put you into remission.
Yeah. And you know, I'm a weirdo, always have been, didn't want to be, but here I am.
Well, I like you, weirdo. You are very great. All right. Well,
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you for all of this sharing today. I'm sure that
yeah,
our empaths will love to listen and learn and just grasp as much as they can.
yeah. I mean, I think it was a long, hopefully it's not too long, but thank you for allowing me to come here to talk to you about this, because it's really interesting. It's, you know, like empathy, empathic, how does that map on? I was very curious myself.
And I want to just share, if you're interested in connecting with Raven directly, her website is liveyouruniqueness.com.
Yep.
Liveyouruniqueness.com. I know you do
Yeah.
lots of different things, but doing some of those human design readings is one of the things you do. Right?
Helping people see what's in their chart. Yeah. And I won't take us on a tangent, but maybe I will. You know, for you, that decision you were talking about, you know, where you suddenly like, no, that's one of the things when you have solar plexus definition, it's really healthy to take your time to have clarity and not to be spontaneous.
Yeah. So if
And
you're in a
really take
hurry,
your time
if
so it
you're that
feels.
person that's in a hurry and you just want to make
Yeah.
a decision and a bit decision is better than no decision, I'm like, you could be making the wrong decision. So
Yeah.
until you get a very clear yes, and it feels good in every part of you, you
Yeah.
don't, you don't,
Yeah.
you don't commit to it. It's not even a decision. You don't really take a step towards it until you have that green light that says,
Mhm.
no, do this now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted, that was a beautiful example of that. I just wanted to highlight that.
Perfect, perfect. All right,
All
everyone.
right.
Thank you for being here. Till next time, stay happy and healthy and enjoy your life. All right. See you soon.